Shooters Connection offers products for competition shooters by competition shooters. With over 80 years of combined competition shooting experience, Shooters Connection is staffed by master and grandmaster shooters who live the shooting sports every day. We offer same-day shipping. Shooters Connection also sponsors over 100 of your matches every single year. So when it comes to finding everything you need to compete as a beginner or a seasoned grandmaster, Shooters Connection is the only name you need to know. Online at shootersconnectionstore.com.
Okay, there we go. Okay, there are two things. Well, let's. Can we pause the uploading for you and me? Pause upload. There we go. Okay, yeah, so we were talking about Gianni. Two things that are very satisfying to me just in life. And that is things that last, things that are built really well, taking care of things that last a long time. And the other thing is when people just do something for a really long time and they slowly get really good at it until they're super amazing at it, right? Not like you come in and like suddenly you're the best at this thing, but people that like over 5 to 10 years they build this base and like can outperform everybody, whether it be like a skill-based thing or athletic performance-based thing. They just like, you've got this like nest egg of experience that just serves you really well. That's just like really satisfying for me to see when I see somebody that has that's developed that. I think it's awesome.
So that's why you drive a Ford, because you like stuff that lasts for a really long time. and
we are live.
And Jeeps.
So good work. USPSA should just be wrapping up its meeting, so we should get 2 watchers for this.
Oof. Okay, this is the Hit Factor podcast. We were in the middle of our discussions, and Jeff was about to drop some knowledge, so I made him hit record so we could get that in. We are talking about Area 1 results, which Area 1 just wrapped up this last weekend in Nevada. I was supposed to go to that match, but it was just a crazy spring, and so I didn't go. But 2 really notable performances at the match. Jacob Hetherington won overall, shooting carry optics, not shooting an open gun. And then Gianni was 3rd place overall, really, really close to, he was like 98%, I think, of Jacob shooting limited. So really, really 2 standout performances from the 2 of them. So, which they're 2 young guys. I mean, Jacob is a little bit older than Gianni now. I feel like Gianni basically is Jacob from 5 years ago. They were both junior shooters, were in the sport for quite a long time, shot as juniors for quite a long time, and then they're getting to be adult age and sticking with it, not abandoning it, and sticking with it, and really seeing all that potential realized. And we see people go away a lot when they're really good as juniors, and they grow up and they got other interests or careers or families or whatever, and their interests don't still align with it. So really cool to see Gianni stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
I mean, both Jacob and Gianni had similar margins, 6-7% wins over the 2nd place person in their division.
Yeah.
So just absolutely, we had like a lot of talent around them too. They weren't beating nobody.
Right. I mean, yeah. So Gianni beat Sauerland by what was that, 6.5%?
Yeah, 5.65%. I think.
Yeah, around there. And Hetherington. Who was it? Was it
June Kim?
June Kim,
who shot amazing. Shot absolutely amazing. Any other weekend, this would be like the story of June Kim, but he ran into Jacob Hetherington.
Mm.
I mean, both Hetherington and Gianni won multiple stages in the overall, not just in their division.
Yeah.
Sometimes by very large margins.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm really hoping that this that we can get like a rivalry with Scott Brown and Gianni. I don't, we haven't. Scott won nationals last year, and we haven't seen a whole lot of him since then. I think it's a senior year, and he's been doing high school stuff, and that sort of stuff. And that's not me talking to him. That's just me. It's just a senior year. That's just my assumption. So I hope that he's going to finish up, graduate here in the next month or so, and then be back to training hard, and that he and Gianni can have some good races. That would be really cool to watch and fun to see. And CO Nat's coming up in what? We've got like a little over a month.
5 weeks. It's 5
weeks before CO Nats. That's shaping up to be quite a match. Jacob is shooting really well. Coming in, Nils, we assume, is going to be Nils. We haven't seen him shoot CO yet this year. I don't think we've seen him, not at a major yet. Christian, I think, is shooting CO Nats. And then, of course, Eric and Robin Griffel are coming to shoot it. So I'm really curious.
And Ed Salgino, who won the European Handgun Championships in production optics, and Martin Kamenicek, who's won a couple of Extreme Euros. They've traded those back and forth. I'm mixing up who won which. But in the last 2 years, one of the two of them has won those in production optics.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not trying to... Mason, who just signed on on the SIGS Pro team, which congrats to Mason. But I mean, he shot a heck of an IPSC Nationals, as it wasn't like Jacob just ran away from him. And so Mason could definitely be in there. So that's shaping up to really be a really entertaining horse race.
And then all the other people too. So the Brantley Merriam, I mean, I know it's just an Alabama State match, but he was 98, 99% of the Open winner. I mean, basically it was Mike Wang, who's a really, really good shooter, and we've seen show up at the top of big matches in the last couple of years. So it's there's a lot of talent there, and now it's just the two of us.
Oh, bye, Joe.
Still live, but maybe not recording.
Nah, we're still recording. We're good. But Jeff left us. Probably had a storm or something. Had a thunderbolt, and so he's cut out. So, yeah, Area 1 was interesting. Sounds like they put in a really nice range. I think it is Gianni's home property, actually, where that range was at, and it sounds like they built a really, really nice range. I just heard it's a really unique range layout, but I haven't actually seen what that was. So, but maybe there'll be more future matches there in the future. More future matches in the future. That was redundant. But we do have a shout out from one of our Patreons, which has to do with that match. Shout out to all the Discord peeps that shot well at Area 1. Ryan Barnes. Ryan had a heck of a match. Wasn't he like over 90% in open?
He's 91% in 6th place.
So good job him. Mid-pack Mike coming in strong with another weekend performance, I believe, on a stage. And he shot.
He was after day 1, he was in pole position. I mean, he was right there. He was like 25 points back.
He choked.
Tuxedos, ate his lunch.
Yeah, he doesn't like that kind of pressure. It's no good for him. Cawthon showed up, and John Headland shooting shot revolver at that match.
He came in second. Don't bury the lead there. He came in second.
He did. He came in
Don't
last place.
look past that.
He did come in last place.
No, he came in second. Second in revolver.
I gotta give props to John for, like, he said he was gonna buy a revolver rig and kind of mess around with it and shoot it. And I was like, no, he's not. Like, there's no way. And then if he does, he's going to shoot, like, a local match. Maybe 2. And he's going to... Sorry. And he's
This is high production values tonight, folks. We are sending our best. Can you believe this guy didn't go to Area 1 and shoot limited like he planned? Anyway, carry on. But you thought he was going to shoot one match and be like, "Yep, I shot revolver. Look at me." But now he full committed. He like learned how to reload. He's doing it.
Yes, he did full send with the revolver, and it seems like he has enjoyed it. So I give him props for that. It doesn't look fun, like watching somebody do it. But maybe I should try one just to see. Jeff, you want to shoot revolver at a match?
Let's go. I got everything but the revolver. I got a rig. I got moon clips.
What?
I got it all. Yeah.
I'll get Poggi to send me a 625. I'll shoot major.
I need a 627.
A 629?
627.
What's the 627?
8-shot 38.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He probably has one. I bet he can hook you up. We'll do that.
Yeah.
I just want a Super GP. I don't want a Super GP enough to get one, but I want to have one for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what happened in Area 1.
Wait. Did you shout out Caleb Patterson for winning?
Oh, no, I did not. Yeah, Caleb Patterson, Caleb, formerly of CZ USA gunsmithing fame, now works for...
MPA?
Is he? Yeah, he's working for
Yeah.
Masterpiece Arms, and he's shooting for them. But he shot open a ton with CZ. Now he's shooting CO, or no,
LO with an
with
MPA,
Masterpiece Arms
with the DS9.
Yeah, and he won limited optics in that and shot a heck of a match. So no, it looks like he's doing well. Congrats to him, and looks like it was a good move for him. So I'm glad that has worked out well. Caleb's a guy I really like. Always like running into in matches, and usually have a good conversation about fly fishing.
A pretty full field too. Like, I mean, there's not a ton of like GMs, but like almost 70. Or there probably was 70 people.
Yeah, before DQs there was 70 shooters, and don't be disheartened by all of the M's at the people at the top. Those are all GMs in another division.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So awesome job, Caleb. Well done.
Yep. Thank you for reminding that shout out, because he shot well.
That's why I'm here.
All right, so we had a discussion came up on the podcast on the Discord about a week ago, and I was like, well, okay, we should discuss that. So a guy came onto the Discord, and I don't remember his name. Potato will remember his name, but he gave us this scenario of there's a target at 15 yards and a target at 7 yards left of that target, just shy of 30 degrees for the transition. And what do we expect our transition time to be for that? And I kind of looked at it, and I'll give my response, and you guys can give what you guys think. My response was just simply like, I have no idea what the transition time would be, and I don't care what anybody else's transition time would be on that. And I gave him a simple scenario. Hey, shooting all A's. Like, shoot it and make sure you shoot A's on that. And I would take out the draw and I would just do a single transition, right? So figure that out. And then shoot it just trying to hang it on paper and see what your transition is. Just going as fast as you can. Shoot an alpha on your first shot and then whip over there and get that transition as fast as you can. And then now you have a number that you can work with on what you can do to improve your transition time. And you can work that with just a 2-shot transition, and then you can add context with a draw and actually having splits, and then maybe add movement or something like that. And so then, but it got into this kind of, well, what would a GM be able to do on that? What should a GM be able to do? So what should I be able to do on that? So how would you guys, Potato responded in that, and Jeff actually did respond in that too, but how, for the people not in the Discord, how would you guys respond to a question like that? Jeff.
Oh, okay. Um, I don't know. Like the question when they're like, ask what a time should be on that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, my answer is essentially going to be very similar to Jeremy's. I don't know what a GM should be able to shoot that in, and I don't care. All that. I mean, knowing what I can do, I think is useful. But that's really it, and I really only want to know what I can do, so that I can gauge, if I'm trying to improve that skill, or just to have the library in my mind, so that if I'm trying to work out like a activator sequence, that I have a number that can be like, okay, well, this takes me this amount of time. Anyway, that would be the only reason I would care about it. I don't really care what other people can do, because most of the times they can do stuff faster than I can, and I don't really feel like it benefits me much to try to hit their numbers. It just benefits me to know what I can do and try to make it as crispy and clean and accurate as I can. Yeah, essentially that's it.
So let me throw a teeny bit of context on there. The person who asked the question, who I won't say their actual name because I'm polite like that, but their screen name is Montana. No prizes for guessing where they live. They are not near matches. They do not have regular access to matches. I believe Jeremy's frozen, but he'll come back to us.
Yeah.
They do not have regular access to matches, and they got to drive a couple hours to get to a local, and then a couple hours back. And I believe they've gone to 2 ever, and they've been at this for a little bit now. And so what they're doing is they're saying, okay, let me define whatever a particular skill is. Here, a 30-degree transition at 15 yards. How do I know if I'm doing it good? And if, like, how fast is good enough? And your answer is kind of, well, as fast as you can, and sort of
as fast as you can do it well.
As fast as you can shoot well.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good answer, right? Like, it's kind of hard to argue with that. The correct answer is 4,200. I went out and I set up exactly I set up exactly that target sequence, and I did it, and I was like, 42. All right, that's the time. So Montana go out there and 15 yard, 2 open targets, 7 yards apart, and then transition between them. Alphas to alphas, you want that to be in 42.42. Obviously, I'm joking, exactly. but I did do that, and then what I did is I embedded that same transition in a stage context, and I put it at the end of a 16-round stage, where I'm running into position, picking up the first target, and transitioning to the last target. And it slowed down a little bit because I'd just been running, so my gun isn't as well behaved, but it didn't slow down much. It was sort of still in that ballpark. I think that kind of benchmark and shooting for benchmarks, I'm the wrong person to ask, because that's all I did for quite a while, and it didn't help me. It didn't sort of make me a more well-rounded shooter. And then I also would define success as hitting the benchmark and then hitting it, a couple of times. It's like, okay, now I'm done with that. It's like, now my transition is X speed. Now I'm done with that, doing something else instead of sort of the quality piece. But Jeremy had more thoughts about this, and we just lost him, so
he'll be back.
He'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my my beef with the benchmarks like that, with people having those numbers, like this should be this should be this. And I know, Ben, his first couple books were all talking about having those benchmarks and essentially talking about how to make GM. It's just like, make sure you can do this thing in this amount of time. And that's great. And that's fine for stand and shoot metrics, like trying to make GM, which is like, I mean, that's basically what you got to do to make GM, is you got to be able to stand still and shoot. But if the goal is to do well at matches, if the goal is to win, if it's to be flexible and be able to shoot all different scenarios, I don't think those metrics are super useful for a lot, other than being able to know what you can do.
And you still want to be able to hang with just about anyone at those stages. And so there is still a benefit to that. If you want to win a big match, there's going to be a couple of stand-in shoots. There's going to be a couple of sort of standards-esque, left hand, right hand. Like if you can't do those kind of core fundamental shooting skills, if you're just very, very efficient between positions, then you're going to hit a different kind of ceiling. And you sort of look at the people who can win in a really contested field, and they can do all the things.
Yeah. But the thing is, they're not doing all these different things that they know their metrics on, right? Like, they're just super versatile, and they can do a lot of things really well. And so
I don't know if that's true.
And they do a stage better than everybody else. But it's not because...
I don't know if that's true, Jeff.
To me, I don't think it's because they sat there and they worked on a 30-degree transition until they worked it down to a 0.2, and they're like, okay, now that's
actually, I think
really well.
I actually think some people did exactly that. And when you guys had Travis Tomasi on 4 years ago now, in December of 2020, he talked about him and Max sitting there and figuring out how much is a shoulder lean leaving a box, how much is shooting on your lead foot versus your trail foot. Like, they worked it down to what is the time costs, and then they looked at stages. This is back in 2006. They looked at stages of assembling these known elements to come up with the shortest time. And I've watched I've watched Seiler walk onto a stage years ago when his dad used to follow him around everywhere, and they're writing down all of the different events at the stage. He's like, all right, this transition here is 45, so they write down 45, right? Yeah. And then it's like, I'm going to split 20 on this. And I know they're not doing that to hit benchmarks in training, but they have a really, really mathematically clear sense of how long everything takes, and then they're assembling those things into the shortest amount of time. So I do think that's possible. And I think you're not going to get that without training those things and sort of knowing how long it takes you to do a thing. It's like, hey, it's 15-yard head box. My split on a 15-yard head box is a 45. And you know that.
Right.
Now, you may shoot it and your sights don't come down nicely, so it's a 52. And you don't care because your sight didn't come down, right? Like, you're going to do what your sights tell you. But when you're sort of looking at the challenge, I do think, there's room for people to math it. I just don't think it helps you in training to isolate.
Hold on.
That is the outcome.
Hold on. Here's the difference in my mind. One is the difference that you've talked about, where you're going to do this thing and you're going to hammer it until you win the drill. You're going to win the skill. You're going to do this thing until it's a 20 and it's not a 40, right?
It's never going to be a 20, by the way. That is a 30-degree transition at 15 yards. If you can do that in 20, my goodness.
Right.
Carry on.
Okay, so winning that thing versus doing it and trying to find inefficiencies and find the best way to do it, I think are totally different ways of thinking about training. And I think that's the difference in what you're talking about. You're talking about someone who has worked through skills to find the best way to do it. Like, they're not necessarily worried about hitting a number, but they want to find the fastest way to do it. But they're focused on how they're doing it. They're not focused on trying to hit a specific number. They're focused on finding the way that does it the fastest.
Steger just had a video the other week, somebody in his comment section, since he now talks to everyone in YouTube comments for fun and entertainment, somebody in the comment section said, hey, how come you use a timer? You never look at it at the end of your run. And his point was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I care how I shot it. I don't care what the time is. Like, the time is what it is. Unless I'm doing something very specific, the time is not interesting to me. And I think that's sort of agreeing with what you're saying, Jeff.
Like, a good example is when I went to shoot with Jeremy, and we did that drill that I got pissed off doing, right? Where you're like running up and shooting around that wall, and you did it like one time, and I could not hit the time that you did it in. And I was like, for however long we were doing that, a couple times.
It was like 7-8 reps. Like, I did it once, and then Jeff did it like 7-8 reps and couldn't couldn't do it. Couldn't make himself do it.
Yeah. So
It was weird.
I was just trying to go faster. And I was like, it's just not, like, I'm not doing it any faster. I can't do it any faster. And so once I realized I'm pushing basically as hard as I can, then I start thinking, okay, well, what am I doing that's slowing me down? Instead of just trying to be faster, what am I doing that's wasting time? And so, then I was able to bring the time down a little bit, and then I quit.
But that's a good point. It's not try harder. It's not go faster by itself. It's what can I do less of?
Yeah. I think, it's just two different kind of ways of thinking about how you're going to do this thing better.
So a selfish
Better
anecdote
versus faster.
is I shot a local match yesterday, and I got the wrong time in my head for my stage, right? And so the stage we finished on, and I had 14 Alpha 4 Charlie, and so in my head I turned that into 1440 for time. So I wasn't really paying attention to doing a bunch of things. And in my head, when I looked at that stage, I said, this is a 10-second stage, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, why am I 4.4 seconds behind the time? And so the match ended, and I said to the squad, because I was the embedded RO running, all right, the match is over, so you can't get DQ'd now. Who wants to shoot the stage again? And, everyone wanted to shoot it again, so we shot it again a couple times. Again, not for score, right? So, I shot it, and it was 10:08. And I shot it again, and it was 10:05. And I was like, yeah, so what am I doing wrong? Right? That I'm 4 seconds different in a match context. Anyway, I didn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I got home, I pull up the scores, and that was not my time. My time was not 14:40. My time was 11 seconds. It was fine. It was like, oh, okay. So yes, I could go faster than I did in the match context, but it wasn't this huge gap. It just was what it was. But I couldn't figure out. I was like, I know this is a 10-second stage, so how did this take me 14:40? Like, I couldn't, mathematically, it's like there's not 14 seconds of stuff to do here. So what went wrong? It was pretty funny. Yeah. Again, nobody else knew what was going on, but that's why we kept reshooting that stage. One of the guys who was there on that squad listens to this.
Getting us back to that original scenario, where the conversation ended up getting is I kind of made the statement there are no, he was looking for this benchmark number for this really specific scenario, and my response was there are no benchmarks. And somebody came in and was like, well, what about a 1 second draw? And I'm like, a 1 second draw to what? There's so much context that has to be added that, okay, I want a 1 second draw to a 7-yard open target. It's like, okay, that's fine if that's something you want to work on. I know guys who have excelled in this sport, done really, really well, and they'll never do better than a 1.25 on that target. I also know other guys who have excelled in the sport and they'll run 70s, and I know other guys who haven't had as good a career and they'll run 60s on that. And then there's the concept that actually how many standing at-side draws do you get to an open target at 7 yards in a match? I mean, it's just not there. So you start trying to add context. Okay, I have to draw and I have to take a step. I have to take a step to the right. I have to take a step back. I have to take a step forward. I'm drawing to a plate or a steel, and it just becomes. I do somewhat stand by that there aren't benchmarks in our sport. There's do what you need to do, and let that be good enough, and just constantly be seeking to do what you can do better. And
just because I like disagreeing with you, I actually kind of agree with you, but I disagree with you and say there are certain benchmarks you actually need to hit at almost any level of participation, and their accuracy more than time. You need to be able to hit a target at 25 yards on demand. Now, do you need to have alphas? No, but you need to be able to look at a target that's 25 yards away and make sure a hole appears in that paper. If you cannot do that, that's a bare minimum benchmark. You should work on that skill. You should work on putting holes in paper between 5 and 25 yards so that outside of a match context without time pressure, if you want to, you can put a hole in there. And I forget that because I basically don't interact with any shooters who can't do that. Really? Mm-hmm. But then like you'll meet people who are just starting, who are really just starting. They're not like gun people who are just starting. And it's like, they can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about this other stuff. Like, you need to. So that's a benchmark, right? If you can't hit a 25-yard
Jeff and I
target,
shot with Fitz at Nationals. We understand.
Oh, that's brutal. That's mean. That's just mean.
It's rough.
And he can hit it. He can absolutely hit it outside of a match context. Same thing when people talk about splits. They're like, splits don't matter. That's true. But if you can't pull the trigger twice in less than 0.3, 0.4 seconds, then that's going to be like an actual barrier, right? So it's like,
sure,
you need to learn how, because that's a mental block. If you don't have a physical disability, that's a mental block that prevents you from pulling the trigger.
Right.
I can't shoot 11s or 12s. I mean, occasionally 12s, 13s slip out, but I can't do that. I don't worry about that. But if I couldn't split faster than 35, it's like, all right, that's a benchmark. You need to be able to pull the trigger twice in less than probably 0.25.
Okay.
Like, that's a benchmark.
I think people, and I've said this before, but it's maybe been a while since I've said it. People really underestimate like how far and how well you can do at this sport being pretty mediocre. Like not being super fast on splits and not being super accurate if you're just consistent. If you just show up to a match and be consistent and don't shoot a bunch of mics, like you don't really have to be super fast or super accurate as long as you hit the targets, and you're going to finish well, in my opinion.
So this is the difference, but that's the difference between winning matches and not losing them, right? So if you're just going to be like, I'm middle of the road, I'm consistent, I'm just going to let other people lose, and that works until it doesn't, and then you kind of need a Hetherington gear, or you need that other thing where you can win instead of just not lose.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're going to show up and win championships shooting that way, but you're going to do really well.
Yeah, so I may contradict myself here whenever I say this, because let's kind of put this in the context of kind of like a newer shooter that's trying to develop. I think that was kind of the person that was asking the question. And so I actually would somewhat recommend what Ben Steger did, my understanding of what he did early on in his career, and that like he didn't really know what to practice, and he didn't know like what do I need to be able to do or anything like that. So he just set up classifiers. He would just take a classifier, set it up, what is a GM run, and then he figured out, okay, what do I need to do to be able to score a GM run on this classifier. I think that's a great way if you're new to the sport. Like that's a great way that doesn't say, hey, I have to have a 1 second draw, or I have to have a 1 second reload, or I have to split this. But no, like what do I need to try and do to get my hit factors to where I'm producing an M or GM score as a hit factor.
If you're trying to reverse engineer what a GM runs a classifier in, do some math and break down what you can get away with on a draw and a transition and all that.
Yeah, because then you start to learn. You actually start to learn hit factor math and scoring, because you can do the math, right? Okay, if I shoot all A's, how slow can I go, or how fast do I have to go? However you're looking at that, how fast do I have to go to still get that 95 or 100% run? Okay. If that's, say it's if I shoot all A's and I can do it in 10 seconds, okay, what if I do it in 8 seconds? Then how many points can I drop and get away with it? And you start to learn, you actually kind of start to learn the sport that way. And I think some of your draws and other stuff like that, you may walk away and, okay, dry fire, my draw was really slow. Like I need to hit that 10 seconds, and I'm at 11 seconds, and my draw is 2 seconds to an open target of a fairly distance. I think there's probably some time to get off of there. So I'm gonna see if I can let's see if I can get at least half a second of that on that draw type deal.
The classic
that
one
would
is
be a good way. Yeah,
like you please don't do this one. But you take Alpres and you're like, hey, I want to get a 10 factor on Alpres. isn't anything now. That's like a B class around the way the high effectors have moved. But all right, I want to get a 10 factor. It's like, okay, so that's 60 alphas, 6 seconds. The math is pretty simple. So let's say I turn and draw in 1.5 seconds and I reload in 1.5 seconds. That means I have 3 seconds left to take 10 shots. That means my splits and transitions need to average 0.3. It's like, can I move the gun 1 yard to another alpha zone in 0.3 and fire a second shot in 0.3, keeping it in the alpha zone? Like, that would be, will achieving that benchmark give you good match performances? Not by itself, but will it give you like a floor level skill of moving the gun from target to target and being accountable for the hits? Absolutely. Without infinite time. Again, when you don't have matches to test yourself, or there's nobody at your matches to test yourself against, like, what's a good time? Well, find a GM run and see what that looks like.
Yeah, and that, again, as a new shooter, that would give you basis. Okay, what do I need to work on in dry fire? Like, where's my low hanging fruit? You could even go dry fire that class fire, set it up in dry fire, see if you can achieve those times in there, and that gives you kind of a base. Now, I think it's fair to say you're not going to walk away probably winning matches because you're shooting GM scores on classifiers in practice. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're just set up to go be a GM and achieve GM scores at major matches.
Probably doesn't mean it probably means you can't hit those in a match either. Right? Like it's a lot easier. Yeah. It's a lot easier to hit scores in context you control when you forget all your bad runs than it is on your only try on the thing you decided to care about. Yeah.
But it would give you a good basis on, okay, how am I going to go about achieving these results, and not just getting sucked in on like one really singular thing that you can sit and try to work out one transition. And I mean, you bring up Potato, you brought up Max Michel and Travis Tomasi. Look, I don't discount what they did in practice as far as like that can't be a good way to practice. There are so very few people who have the resources and the time to actually practice that.
That was the other piece, is that you got to be able to go and check out of the locker the 2,500 rounds that the AMU just set in your locker for you last night, so you can go out and hammer on it for 4 hours. If that doesn't apply to you, then that may not work as well.
Yeah, if you're trying to go to the range and you got 150 to 250 rounds and you're doing that once or twice a week, probably you can't necessarily sit there and try to figure out what is my one transition time on this one transition. Because I'll say this, because I think Potato's right. There are some people out there, maybe Christian is one of those. I would have kind of thought that Ben might have been one of those type that you can just sit and they can mathematically, okay, this is a 25-yard zebra. I know I'm going to shoot 45 splits on that, and I'm going to transition to the 7-yard open, and I know I'm going to shoot this, and then I know what this is going to be. And they can just mathematically plot stuff out, and they're able to kind of shoot somewhat robotically in that manner. I think those people are, from my perspective, I think those people are fairly few and far between that are able to do that. And I say that from a person who tried to really, I really tried to dive into that and tried to really make, how can I practice and make my shooting as predictable as possible. And if you can do that, awesome. Good for you. I think that could produce some really great results. But when I also say that I don't believe in metrics, is that if I'm shooting a match and I'm trying to achieve those metrics on a stage, my goal is I'm trying to achieve a certain split on a certain target. I'm trying to produce that result. For me, that did not end up producing good stage runs. That actually ended up putting more stress, even on easy targets. It almost made the easy targets. It was like I knew what my max potential was on an easy target, and I felt like I had to achieve that max result even on what would be let's just call it a 7-yard open target. And it was like I had stress that I felt like I had to run like a sub 15 split on that, or I wasn't going as fast as I should be going. Does that make sense at all? How, I mean, it's crazy. Like it's weird that, but it was like, I would get stressed out on really simple stages and then not perform those very well.
I was having exactly this conversation with someone last weekend. That this is this is the stages I'm intimidated by. Sometimes erroneously, right? Like I should be more scared of the complex stages, but I'm just not. Like even if I haven't earned it, I just have this confidence that I can make any shot the sport requires in any circumstance. And even if that's not true, I just feel like I can, so it doesn't matter. It's true for me. The close, fast stuff, I have this sense of how it should sound or how it should look. And the moment I let that get in my head, I get way...
German Shepherd, right?
That is my German Shepherd. I get intimidated. Like, I get intimidated by, like, close, fast, hosing stuff. Because I know, like... And I can do it. I can't do it as well as people who are really good at it. But I can do it. Like, it shouldn't be, like, a thing to worry about. If I relax and look in the middle of the target, for me, that's all I need to do. But anyway, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can very well you can very well end up worrying about trying to produce your absolute maximum potential score on a stage, and then in trying to produce that maximum score, you just put that much more stress in you, and you're going to screw up. And where I feel like I'm at in my personal journey is that sometimes I could shoot a stage 3 times in a row, and my max score on what I could do on that stage for that run may be a second and a half slower on the second run than it was the first run. Not because I necessarily did anything wrong, just the guns, the sights didn't quite line up perfectly on, whereas one run, like, it just, everything was just perfect, and it was, you just shot and it was easy. The second time the stuff wasn't lining up perfectly, so you still executed great and you were patient with your sights. I think Potato said he doesn't like. Are you the one that said you don't like patience? Oh, you don't like. What was it? Oh gosh, I got sidetracked. Never mind. But
you don't like. But you don't like being patient on your sites. That's you.
You're the one.
Yeah,
that's you.
Yeah, I don't like being patient. That's right. That's me.
I get blamed for everything. Really, it's amazing. Even things Jeremy doesn't like, he blames me for.
That's why you're here. We need a scapegoat. But so, like, I just think that sometimes you're gonna do stuff correctly on a stage, and it may produce different results. You may end up winning that stage and you shot it great. You may shoot a stage absolutely great to how you were able to perform on that particular stage at that time, and you get beat by 10%, and that's just part of it. So I have another topic that's kind of along this developmental thing, which I find interesting, because I've watched it like in friends, like in some other friends, and I feel like if I look back, I can kind of observe it in myself. Some people have this really kind of like just steady rise, right? Like they just have this really kind of steady rise to the sport, and they may hit kind of some little plateaus, but they really just kind of keep rising. I feel like Jeff has really kind of had that, like his career has kind of looked at that, just kind of really steady rise. I haven't seen him like have a super hard plateau. He may feel differently, but from an outsider, it hasn't like been any big plateaus. But I see guys that come in the sport, and you have the newbie, gains, right? I mean, it's kind of like if you go to a gym, you get these newbie gains, and you can, just by getting familiar, you get a whole lot better really fast, right? And so you're just going to get that. And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, you got really good, and you're now familiar with the sport. Your body's familiar with all the movements. There's no easy gains to be had. And so then you've performed really well up at that point. It's like you got really good, and then now it's like, okay, I want to get better. And then all of a sudden you're trying to get better, and then you're seeking to find improvements and figure out what do I need to do to get better. your results actually start going the other direction, right? Because as you're trying to develop new skills, you end up breaking stuff down, and you have mental issues and
Who are you talking
things
about,
like
Jerry?
that.
Yeah, you keep saying you. You should personalize this. You can say I.
Oh, I wasn't. I mean, I think I did experience this, but I'm talking of like people that I've like observed.
People.
I'm not talking about who Jeff. I wasn't actually thinking of who Jeff was thinking that I was.
Oh my goodness! And
talking
I'm
about
the
there.
slowest person here tonight, but I just got there too.
Oh man, no, not. I mean, he may be there. He may be there. He likes the mental game, and maybe he needs to work on the mental game before he teaches the mental game a little bit. But so like I find it interesting just in people's journeys of like getting to that point, and sometimes like how do I go? I've hit this plateau, and then how do I go forward without going backwards? And some people seem to just like they just kind of just keep inching up, and then some people like they got to go backwards before they can go forwards again. And it's just a fascinating. I don't have like a tip for those people. Maybe you guys do, but I just think it's a fascinating thing of our sport that is just something to. If you're newish and you've gotten familiar with the sport and you've had a bunch of big gains, you think I'm going right all the way to the top. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll hit face first into a wall
Yeah.
and you won't make it to the top.
Before he quit, this was Bradley's thing about grinding. That when you sort of recognize you're in that spot, well, it's not you need to radically change something. You don't need to change divisions. You don't need to change guns. You don't need to go get a new guru. Maybe you just need to sort of stay where you are and grind for a while and see what happens.
Yeah. And this is actually relatable to something else that, or really it's relatable to, I think, anything that you pick up and you get good at, or you think you're good at, pretty quickly. Or maybe you find some quick success at it, right? And then like Jeremy says, then you're like, oh, well, I think I'm actually pretty good at this, so now I'm going to work at it. And then that's really where you start getting mental about it. That's where you really start dissecting things, right? And that's also where you'll start changing things. That's where you'll be like, okay, well, I'm dissecting this, so I'm going to change this. I'm going to change the way I think about this. And now you're kind of hitting the reset button on any progress that you've made, which it's been short term thus far anyway, but you're still hitting a reset button. Because anytime you change something, you kind of start over with that curve. It's like of developing that thing, right? So you keep analyzing and you keep changing, and you keep analyzing and you keep changing, and you just kind of keep resetting, and it's hard to make any progress that way. So I think that's a big challenge. Like once you're 2-3 years into the sport, or really into anything, honestly, is can you dedicate yourself just to effort, just to consistency on the thing? Because you want to change. You're like, because you think you're there on those skills. You're like, okay, well, if I want to get better, I need to change this thing. So you change it, and then you start working up, and you're not any better after a while because you reset, and then you change again. And so I really think there is, like, everybody does things differently, and there's a lot of different ways to get to the end of the road. A lot. And I really think the key is consistency and mastering, however you do it, mastering it.
Yeah, if I, looking back on my career at this point, like if I could go back and redo it, because I'm almost 40. Like it doesn't mean I can't compete or don't, but I'm almost 40 and I have kids.
You look so
I'm
young.
not where I was at when I was 28 and didn't have kids. So like if I could go back and redo some stuff, I kind of wish I had spent a little bit less time trying to do what other people did.
Yeah.
Like I every year I would almost like start of the year after this was after I was in for like 3, 4, 5 years. I really kind of was like, okay, I see that I observe them doing this, and they seem to shoot better than me, and so I'm going to try to start doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like so like I got like really into trying to control like if I can just control the recoil, if I can just keep the guns flat, like super flat, then I will be able to just go fast, and these penalties are like my accuracy is going to get a whole lot better. I'll be able to shoot a lot more aggressively.
Yeah.
And so I really went on this rabbit hole of just trying to like grip the gun as hard as I possibly could. The captains of Crush and doing all of that sort of stuff. When really I probably should have just kept doing what I was doing. And yeah, I could okay, let's improve our fitness. Let's improve our overall upper body strength. Like I have a pretty slight build. Like let's improve that and let that be a slow increase rather than trying to just put all of our focus into controlling recoil. Because now you guys observe, anybody that sees me shoot, I still have bad habits that I cannot break from going down that rabbit hole.
And I think recoil is an obvious one, and I think like this comes in waves. But I've watched people who've come into the sport after me who got really good really quick, and I was like looking over my shoulder and I'm like, oh man, this person's going to pass me. And some of them have, and some of them haven't. And some of the ones who haven't, they got really obsessed with grip. Is they like got to a spot where they were doing really good. They're efficient. They're healthy. They move around the stages really well. But they keep having, they have bad points when they go fast. And their thinking is somehow if the gun doesn't move, then they can't possibly have bad points, right? And so they get really, really obsessed with grip. And they watch a lot of slow motion videos of their grip, and they watch a lot of slow motion videos of other people's grip, and they spend, they move their hands back and forth around, and they just spend an absurd amount of time and energy. And I have that temptation because I like to do that sort of thing, and I like to sort of tinker with things and grind. But I got given a tremendous gift by a couple of the big instructors in this sport, because I sent them some video and they told me, yeah, don't work on your grip. And it's not like my grip's perfect, but they just looked at the whole picture of my shooting and they're like, yeah, that's not your problem. Like, I mean, I shoot bad points because my brain leaves before I'm done shooting the target. Like, that's where I shoot bad points. Maybe 10% of the time it's because I pulled the trigger before my sights are there. But 90% of the time my sights were there, and then I took them off the target and pulled the trigger. Like, all the grip in the world isn't going to fix that. But I can't train that by keeping the gun from moving. Even if I can get the flattest, most beautiful slow motion, recoil pattern ever, if I move the gun off before the second shot, I'm going to keep shooting Charlies and Deltas. Yeah. And so it was a great gift that I got from those guys. They're like, yeah, stop. For you, don't think about grip. Okay.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that my recoil control didn't need to
improve.
Yeah.
I mean, mine still needs to, but it's just not. It's not the gains aren't there.
Right. And so and I say that not to necessarily get into a grip or recoil discussion, just that along what Jeff was just saying, I wish I had kind of just stayed on my own path and said, hey, I'm going to do this my way, and just done that rather than trying to observe and chase what I thought other people were doing.
That was the Cawthon way. I don't want to take a class or read a book.
Well,
I mean, I didn't really either, but I still tried to copy other people without taking the classes.
I mean, that is, I think, one of the, if not the biggest hurdle on trying to get better at this. Once you've hit your 2-year newbie gains plateau, or 3-year, whatever it is, once you've hit that plateau, I think the biggest challenge is trying to figure out how to navigate skill building and fundamental development and taking direction and ego, and you're taking all this in and trying to figure out the path through it. and it's very complicated, I think. Unless you have no ego and you can just basically pick somebody, pick a way of doing things and then just freaking hammer it. But I mean, we're conscious beings, so you're going to be thinking for yourself. You're going to have opinions. You're going to have ways that you want to do things. So it's a lot to navigate, and I think that is what determines if after 3 years are you going to keep progressing. Can you navigate all of that jumbled up, those ideas and ego and whatnot.
I also think we get in loops, people who think about shooting a lot, where whatever the thing is, we're all talking about that thing, and there's the tastemakers and we know who they are, and we benefit, but they sort of set what the conversation is, and then we just use that. And I think the proliferation of stage video has made this so much worse. Maybe you guys are less approachable than me, but I have friends who often share their stage videos with me, and then they want me to say something about it. And so the things I say about it are the really obvious things that for the most part don't matter. And on the rare occasions when I have stage video and I share it with those same friends, they also say the obvious things. That they're like, well, you're drop stepping a lot. It's like, who cares? There's great sports science research that drop stepping does not matter. If you take like any top level linebacker and you're like, hey, go this way, now go that way, like 100% of them will drop step to get up to peak acceleration quickly. 100% of them. If you look at any soccer goalie in the world, like how do they make a save? They take a false step and then they go. All of them. It's a wonderful way to accelerate. However, it's a thing that coaches can tell people not to do because it's really obvious and it's visible. You know what's really hard to do? It's really hard to look at somebody's video and know what their mind is thinking about. To know that like they're missing the steal because they're thinking about the swinger, right? You can't see that in video. But you can see a drop step. Or you can see someone standing up. You can see somebody compressing to leave. It's like, is compressing to leave peak efficiency? No. But if you're getting blown out on the stage by 3 seconds, it's not the two positions where you compress to leave. It's probably over transitioning the gun and having to wait for the sights to come back. It's probably everything. But anyway, in video, movement gets sort of dramatized in video. And so if you look at shooting video, you notice the big movements. Mm-hmm. But if you watch the really great people shoot, they're not beating you on big movements. Like, they're beating you on, like, everything. And you can't see it in video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
On the
I agree.
the thing that they're really good at, they're beating you by a lot, and they're beating you by a little bit on everything else.
Right. And the thing you're really good at, you hang with them just fine. And so if you're really athletic, you'll be like, look, box to box stuff. I get to box B and I shoot just as soon as the fastest people in the sport. Like, awesome. And yet they're still 2 seconds a stage ahead of you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I mean, it's really hard to like try to give any sort of advice on it, other than like, hey, I think this is just it's an interesting conversation to have. If you're interested in getting better at the sport, like it's something to consider of how you're going to try to go forward. Because look, we don't have coaches in this sport, right? Like, there's not enough money. I mean, that you can go kind of get coaching, but we don't have coaches. And maybe some junior shooters, their parents are their coaches type deal. But for the most part, we don't have coaches in this sport. And so you're left to navigate it. But even the places that do, like you go to professional golf and these kids have coaches from day one, there still is no like set path. How do you navigate this to go from junior golfer to college golfer to professional golfer to winning a PGA tournament to winning a major? Like there is no set path, right? It's how you navigate. It's just how you navigate it. But I do feel like we're seeing the guys on tour that are being successful right now. You look at a Scotty Scheffler type who's just dominating it, has the most unconventional footwork, and like his swing is super unconventional, and like he's on one of the most dominant stretches that we've seen outside of Tiger Woods, and he's just doing it his own way.
Right.
Like he's doing it his own way, and he's figured out his way to do it, and any professional coach that, like, if a student walked in and they swung like he did, like if they weren't watching where the balls go, like they just watched him swing, they would stop doing that. Like, we're gonna fix this.
Yeah.
Like, it needs to be fixed. And yet he's the greatest player in the world by a lot.
And you look at the sports that do have enough money in them to have dedicated coaches, and the really good coaches or managers, what they do is they take people who are already good, right? And then they help those people be better. And so it's, the sports I follow, like when you have a really good coach and like they have a winning team, it's like that is the coach's work. But everyone on the team isn't doing the same thing. And like they don't have the same routine, and they're not asked to do the same things, and they don't train the same ways, because a really good coach is sort of saying like, you do this, you do that, they're versus the temptation is, and I'm just going to pick a very safe example. What does Rob Latham do? Oh, I'll just do that. Like, no. Like, I'm not Rob Latham. Like, that's a terrible approach for me. I should not do what Rob Latham does. I mean, shoot targets fast. That's a good idea. But we don't have coaches who are like, what's sort of your profile? What are your assets? Like, how can we maximize you? We sort of have like, well, what's an approach that has worked for somebody else?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's...
Yes. So
it's been sort of an interesting thing that I've been dealing with, because I've had a new guy that's been shooting with me, and he doesn't compete, not yet. We might do a major at the end of this year, but I've been like trying to help him learn how to shoot without telling him like exactly how to like grip the gun, right? So I'll be like, okay, the basics are, you want like the gun to contact your hand here, and you want to squeeze it pretty hard with this hand. And I was like, the rest of it is you need to come out here and shoot, and you need to figure out how you can hold the gun the best. And like that's basically the most information I give him about how to hold the gun, and just kind of seeing where he ends up, right? It's been kind of weird, because like I don't teach, right? So it's been some...
Potato's so jealous right now because this is the sensei he tried to get. Like
he's just giving it away for free in Ada.
And he couldn't get it. And then this random dude just walks up to Jeff on the range. And then now Jeff is his sensei. And Potato's, he's never been more jealous or envious of somebody in his life.
Almost, yeah. This is probably the second most envious I've ever been. And it's funny because there's a new shooter at my gun club. He's been shooting for a while, but he's never competed, and he wants to do it right, and he's doing it very piecemeal. And so I ran him on his first time ever on a stage. After the match yesterday, I ran him on a stage when nobody else was there, and that was his first time shooting on the clock. And I had the temptation to like back up the dump truck and just tell him all of the things he needs to know. And I tried to remember like what good teachers do, because I'm not a good teacher. I was like, all right, I'm going to give him one thing. And so I just gave him one thing, and I was like, all right, man, what you're going to do is we're just going to keep shooting this sequence again, and all I care about is you just don't take your hands off the gun between targets, and you keep it up where your eyes are. We're going to shoot these 5 targets, and we're just going to move through there. I don't care what your feet do, or like I don't care how the gun recoils, nothing else. It's like we're just going to keep the gun up. And, he did it, and after a little bit, he's keeping the gun up. Like, kind of amazing. Yeah. You shoot for a long time and drop the gun between positions. But
that's what my grandpa used to do with golf, because my grandpa taught me how to golf. And I would play like the whole course with a putter and a 7-iron. And and he would just tell me like one or two things like after the first hole, and then the rest of the day like he basically wouldn't say anything about what to do. He would just be like, think about those things today. I thought it was awesome. Great way to learn.
Yeah. No, that's it's hard as an instructor not to just keep giving info, because you feel like you're supposed to, and sometimes the student wants that, right? The student want critique on every run that they make. I remember playing tennis in high school, and I had lessons like just kind of like with a local lady, like when I was little, and then when I was later in high school, kind kind of finally got some lessons like with like a local like club pro, like at the country club type deal. I only had like three, I think that I remember like 3 or 4 lessons with them. And I remember like the first kind of lesson I had, I was excited. I was like, I'm going to get some good information off this. And basically the lesson was he had a shopping basket full of tennis balls, and he just hit them. He just hit them to me, and I hit him. And he was like, get the ball higher over the net. And that was basically the lesson. It was like, your ball needs to be higher over the net. I don't care if it goes long, but you need to hit it higher over the net. And he just hit a ton of balls that way, and that was basically it. And I'm like, I was hoping for more. But in all honesty, that was all I needed. I just needed to hit the ball. I needed to give myself more margin and hit the ball higher over the net. And he could have tried to critique a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't need to. I just needed to figure out how do I hit it higher over the net and have it still land in the court.
And that's the difference between
figured out how to make that happen.
Yeah, and that's the difference between like learning how to do a thing and having the experience of learning for like a minute, right? So let's say I had the resources and the time and family freedom to go and learn how to make a 1911 the other week at your shop, right? Just who I am, I would want like, okay, I'm going to download like all of Jeremy's gunsmithing experience, and we're going to pack it all into this week. But like what I probably need to learn is like 3 core things about like key places for fitment for like a fully functional firearm. And if I learn those 3 things, then like my week's a success. And like everything else is time and attention, right? Not like to make beautiful custom guns, but in terms of like functional 1911 building. And it's not going to be a ton of information. It's going to be a lot of attention to specific things.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing how much we said the same stuff over and over and over again, and guys still wouldn't, like they still wouldn't do it, right? Like whenever I'm filing on a part, I'm constantly putting like blue Sharpie on it, because that tells me where I'm taking metal off, and it tells me where I need to take it off. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. And so like I'll demonstrate stuff, and I'm sitting there like I'll mark it up in my 5-minute demo. I'll mark it up 3 or 4 times in Sharpie, and these guys go on and they're hacking on this steel for like 30 minutes or an hour, and they've blued it up like once, and it's like, where's your Sharpie at? I don't know. I can't find it. It's like okay. So I mean, yeah, like I hope that people, like if people walk away from the class and they know how to use a file correctly, like that is huge. If they can somehow, if I can just teach them how to look at a gun and kind of look and understand what a good gun looks like and what one that's not as good, like just kind of teach their eye. And then, the gun will tell you, like if you'll pay attention, if you'll learn how to like pay attention to the gun will tell you kind of how to fit it and where it needs attention and where it doesn't. It gets lost in the week because it's 70 hours, 60 hours in a single week, and it's all new information all day, every day. So that stuff gets lost. But yeah, it's still a similar process. Every part that we fit, we do the same process. It's just trying to teach them, hey, this is the part of this part where we need to apply this process, right? But it's almost the same process over and over and over and over again.
You can't just blow it once and then file it until it looks like the right shape.
No, I'm waiting for somebody to show up with like aerosol Sharpie, like aerosol. I don't know if I don't know if they make Dicam in aerosol or not. There are pictures of Mid-Pack Mike, because he would walk away every day. He looked like a Smurf. I was gonna say something more crass, but like his entire hands were just blue. And these guys, man, they're amazing what they could destroy in a week. We kind of got off topic, but what they can destroy in 6 days, I can build 10 guns, 20 guns on like the same, like on a workbench, and there is less wear and tear on like my mat and the bench and all of that in like 10 to 20 guns than these guys do in 1 gun in 6 days. It's amazing. But not all of them, but some of them. some of them. And so it's amazing and entertaining. It was painful to watch my beautiful workbenches get beat up the first time, but that's okay. It's what they're made for. But
Yeah, those were nice workbenches
they were.
that you made.
They were.
I was like,
Yeah.
damn, those were beautiful.
Yeah. I put too much effort into them.
I was like, damn, just throwing together some workbenches and it's freaking
Well,
perfection.
here's my thought on that, and then we'll probably finish up for the night. My thought on that is like I want to be able to do like more furniture type stuff. Like I need to build my kids some dressers, and I want to build them some beds, and like I want to be able to do more furniture stuff like that. So it's like, okay, I have to build these workbenches. Let's just use this as a way to practice
Yeah.
better processes of making something nicer. And so then we have more experience when we actually want to make something that actually need to be nice, that's going to go in the house. We have more practice in that, thinking like that. I think it's just a mindset, man. Like, I could have thrown together workbenches really easily and really quickly, and they would have been functional. But there's there's somewhat a mindset. Like, if I'm going to spend time on this, then let's make it nice and let's see how well we can do it. And I think if you can apply that to everything in life, then I think that's a good way to go about doing things.
No, dude, that's huge. And I know we've talked about that before, but like that is why a lot of the, like, if I have to put sights on a gun, or if I have to throw together a workbench for the shop or something like that, that's why it's so shoddy. It's just because, like, I just want it done.
Yeah,
it needs to be a surface. It doesn't need to last for years.
Yeah.
Like, nothing needs to even be square. As long as it's flat on the top, we're good to go.
Yeah. It just needs to stand up, be flat. That's about it. But, in the recent years, I have really tried to start, like, being present and enjoying, like, what I'm doing. Like, when I was doing that lake house, and I was like, okay, I really need to get these cabinets done this week. I need to paint these. But I'm just going to be here and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to worry about getting it done. I'm just going to focus on doing it and how I'm doing it. And dude, that work was so enjoyable. Like, it felt so good to do that and get it done. And when I was done, I was like, that's maybe the nicest thing I've ever done.
Do you think
it was amazing.
Do you think your shooting helped you with that? Because that's how you shoot.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you're very
Jeremy
process
helped me with
oriented.
that.
You're very process oriented.
It was probably Jeremy. I just see him do stuff, and I just feel so shameful about the way I do stuff. So I'm like, all right, I got to do something about this. I'm embarrassed.
The only thing I'll say about that is, to me, like, it just makes like being in the shop more enjoyable. Like it's just more enjoyable to use a workbench that's nice versus one that's just thrown together. Because my actual workbenches that are mine that I work on, they are ones that I just threw together 12, 14 years ago. And I very much like the other ones now that I've built, that the guys in the class, I kind of want to, like, move my old workbenches, let the guys in class have those, and I want to put the new ones there. But, like, I made I use on my Dremel tool, it's a Milwaukee, but, like, I don't use the quick change collets because they rattle around more and they don't spin as concentrically, so I use the collet. And it comes with like a little tiny tool that you can do it. And those tools get kind of dented and bent, and they're just kind of cheap, flimsy. So I was like, man, forget this. This just kind of drives me nuts. So I took like a couple hours one weekend, and I like made one. Like, I machined it. Like, I put some like holes in it. I dehorned all the way around it and kind of made it look nice. Like, I stamped my initials in it and all sorts of stuff. This is really stupid, but I just enjoy using it. Like anytime I need to, like, change the tool, like the bit that's in my Dremel, I enjoy changing it out. Like, it's a very small thing, but I look at things like, oh, this is cool, and I use it and put it up, and So I don't know. Like I think if you can take the time like to make something that you're proud of, like yes, Jeff could have not bought a crack house and he could have bought a nicer house. But I do think if he doesn't sell it, that is it for sale?
No, not yet.
Not yet. But like if he does use it, and I think he's trying to decide probably if he wants to get his investment out of it or not. But if he does like use it, like I think there will be so much more value in him taking his family there to go like because he did it and it's nice and it wasn't just thrown together. That it's just going to be that much more. Like when Thea's to bed and he's just chilling there drinking his, I don't know what it'll be. Maybe it'll be Kentucky Spirit. We'll find him a bottle of Kentucky Spirit, a nice one for his lake house. He's drinking that. Like I think it'll just be it'll be more enjoyable for him than if he had just bought it.
Man, it's some deep shit, man. It's deep.
Oh, so deep, so deep.
And you guys on your build not bought. Let's go the whole way, Jeremy. Next year, we're going to earn our turns. We're skinning up the mountain and skiing down.
If you want to look, if you came to Crested Butte, there's some. I mean, there's guys that do that. They skin up to the very very top. But there's all sorts of backcountry skiing at CB. There's lots of backcountry skiing at CB.
Let's earn our turns.
I got
man.
new boots this year.
I think you'll enjoy
with.
it more. I mean, I think like your one good run that like you worked to get there, it'll feel different.
If if you make good turns, then yes. If you make that one run and then you just fall your way down the mountain, then it's gonna feel like, oh, that was dumb.
I wish I wasn't so tired. I wouldn't have ragdolled over this ravine.
I would like to try this again, but I don't have any effort to take a 2,000 foot climb up the mountain again. But all right, well, cool.
Did you forget your catchphrase? It's not.
It's something about a biscuit.
Yeah, it's not. Bang Up Podcast. It's not Get to Work. It's definitely not a little tugboat we like to call the Paracast. It's not. Don't shoot like a coward.
What did Thea say about that biscuit?
Don't be a bitch. Don't be a little bitch.
Was it skin it like a biscuit?
It was break it.
Break it like a biscuit.
Break it like a biscuit.
Yeah.